Perfect. I even bring stuff in.
They wanted to do 512. He wanted to make sure we're not on copy. Yeah.
All right. We're ready whenever you are, so if you want to take your actions.
Okay, I'd like to call the Warren County Finance and Budget Committee to order. I believe we have a quorum with the chairman.
For finance and
And we're all good recording. Got it. Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us on this sticky, hopefully path to summer day. So we hope to get a little bit less rain and a little more sunshine will be good. And for those who don't know me, it's Deputy President Christine around that. A little bit longer. Yes, I'm still here. It's been the longest goodbye in history, and I'm still here. So, yeah, thrilled to be here with all of you, and I want to say thank you for all of your support. So I'm going to start us off with just an update on. It's always on student very much. So here's what we're going to talk about. I'll do a brief update on things happening at the college, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague Kaplan to share a high-level view of the operating budget, and of course answer any questions that you might have. So a lot happening, of course, at the college, but I wanted to start with highlighting a few new degree programs that we're in the process of implementing, we hope. So there's a whole process, as you can imagine, that we have to go through in order to bring in a new degree program at the college. It starts internally, of course, by the faculty. It goes through a governance process and a review process that's pretty substantial. It lands with our board of trustees. Once the board of trustees approves the program, it then goes on to SUNY. And then after that, the New York State Education Department. So it's usually a year-long process or a little bit longer depending on the program. I'm thrilled that we have at least gotten to the stage of sending it to SUNY for our radiologic technician program. For some of you who've been around a little longer, you might remember the college did used to have a rad tech program. It was in partnership with Glens Falls Hospital. The hospital did all the clinical and all the specific coursework through the hospital. We provided the little arts components to the degree program. In about 2013, we had just reached a point of saturation. There just weren't enough students to maintain the program, and so that program sunsetted. Fast forward, as of course our community has been aging and there's more demand on technology has advanced. We've had several conversations with both Glens Falls Hospital and Saratoga Hospital about their dramatic need for X-ray technicians and folks that can do radiology. So at first we were trying to figure out if we could partner with another institution. It didn't really make sense. So we took the next step to invest in this program. So it's now at SUNY. Next it will go to state ed, and it also then has to go to the Office of Professions because it's a program that requires licensure and that requires an extra step in the process. If all goes well, we expect to be able to implement that program in fall of 26. And we will actually have a cohort both here in Queensbury as well as in Saratoga. So I'm very excited about the program. It's not an inexpensive program, as you can imagine. And so we're looking for grants and opportunities to be able to buy the equipment that we need and be able to do the program online next year. The second program is environmental science. I always thought it was a little strange here at the foothills of the Adirondacks that we didn't have an environmental studies or science degree program. And so I'm pleased that the science department worked hard to create this program. It It's at SUNY as well. That one should be a shorter, frame in terms of approval. And, hopefully maybe even begin moving students into that program in spring of 26. And it really will focus on soil and water, which is really, of course, a key component to what we're doing. So thrilled about that. We've also been very busy focusing on what is being called micro credentials, but really the idea of taking 2 to 3, maybe sometimes 4 credit-bearing courses, but bundling them together to produce, you know, an industry recognized credential of some sort. Kind of, it can be used in a variety of ways. It could be a person that's not quite ready to commit to a full degree, but if they take these 2 or 3 courses, they have a credential they can demonstrate to an employer. Or it could be someone that's in the degree program, but within that degree program, this is a way to credential a person. As well as someone who may already have a degree in something else and is looking to upskill, and this is a way for them to do that. So we've been working with our faculty to look at ways we can bundle courses, and you can see quite a few. What's really exciting is I'll focus on HVAC, because I know many conversations I've had with some of our supervisors and our community is, of course, we have a great demand for HVAC technicians, particularly in the residential area. Last summer, we received a grant from SUNY and we were able to pilot an HVAC training program in partnership with the Plumbers and Steamfitters Union for Glens Falls. Actually be able to use their site, which was really tremendous for us because we didn't have the ability to host it on campus. So we had a waiting list the minute we announced it. And so now we've received even more grant funding to be able to continue the cohort. So we have a cohort starting in June. Again, this summer, we'll have one again in the fall and one in the spring. But what we wanted, because that's a 12-week, it's a non-credit, it's not necessarily a degree, it's really a training sort of boot camp model. We worked with our faculty to be able to take that 12 weeks and allow that to be translated into credit so that it could give a student the next step into one of our degree programs. So we're excited about that. Bookkeeping has been very popular. We've been able to offer a bookkeeping micro-credential, even bundled within the summer session, and that has been really popular. So more to come on those, but again, kind of thinking about how college is different for everyone. Some people are looking for the more traditional degree. Some people are looking for a shorter ramp into a job, and so we're trying to accommodate all the different learners that we need to serve. You may remember last year we announced that we received a new designation for our Saratoga campus. That's actually a branch campus that allows us to be able to offer full degree programs, which we weren't able to do that in the eyes of SUNY and state ed. So since then, we've been trying to figure out which programs we really want to focus. You know, Saratoga is a great center. It doesn't have the comprehensive facilities, of course, that we have here. And so rather than try to be a little bit up to everyone, we want to be very focused on a few areas. So we've spent the last year working both with some external advisors, people from the business community, from workforce development, from the chamber, to really identify what would be unique at Saratoga, what would be maybe more specific to the Saratoga County region. And out of that, through conversations with external partners, our internal stakeholders, our faculty, looking at data, we decided that we really want to focus on 3 key areas at our Saratoga campus: business, IT, and healthcare. We looked at labor market trends in Saratoga County specific, and although it's not that much different here, and given the facilities that we have, knowing we're not going to build more at Saratoga or add on, we really want to focus on those 3 key areas. And really focus on the adult learner as being our primary audience. Although we may do other things at Saratoga, we believe that we have the best opportunity to focus on the mature learner, kind of call the no-frills learner, someone who's not looking for the full comprehensive campus, a turf field, and the gym, and all the other things that people traditionally think of as college, but really focused in on, you know, I want my education when I want it for what I want it for, and I want it to be flexible and meet the needs of a working adult. So that's going to be our focus at the Saratoga campus. As you know, Saratoga County pays chargebacks to the college. and it's the largest percentage of our population. And so continuing to be able to provide education in Saratoga County is not only a good service to the area, but it also does help the college financially as well. So we're excited about having a bit more focus. So I kind of joke, we've been using Saratoga as almost Queensbury light. Like we'll do a little bit of what we do at Queensbury at Saratoga, and instead trying to really focus in our resources. One thing that we're going to kick off this summer as a pilot, and as a result of these conversations we've had with our external partners, with the complaint that we hear the most from employers is I can train them on the technical skills that I need to have for this particular job, but I really need people who know how to work. And as frustrating as that sounds to all of us, it's something we want to try to address. So we're actually piloting and we're doing it in partnership with the schools and Global Foundries as an employee readiness curriculum. It's about a 7-day curriculum, and I use curriculum lightly. It's not for credit. It's really workshops to help people become more employment ready. So, you know, things like, how do I understand myself better so I can communicate better when I'm on the job? How do I communicate with my boss? How do I communicate with my team members? Hate to say it, maybe showing up on time, things like that, that maybe some of us take for granted. And sometimes people just haven't had that opportunity to really develop those skills. So we're trying this. We're going to see if it's something that really does resonate. And if it does, then how to maybe roll that out. We have this vision that potentially an employer would be as part of the interview process, like, okay, we're going to offer you this job, but before you start, you're going to go through this curriculum, this 7-day program, and it should alleviate a little bit of the onboarding requirements from a company to us, and then they can really focus on onboarding for the specific skill in that. So we're trying it out, and we're kind of anxious to see how this works. Of course, AI, everyone's talking about generative AI. We are as a campus very engaged in those conversations. We've spent really the last year in a variety of different training opportunities and professional development for our employees to help position us to be a leader in thinking about how to responsibly use generative AI in our work, and of course our students, and how they're not only applying it within their learning, but also preparing them for the workforce that's going to expect that you're going to have some level of comfort with generative AI tools. As part of that, we've partnered with an organization called HumanSkills.ai. Their philosophy is really around, because of course the mantra is, oh my gosh, you know, AI is going to replace my job. That may be possible, but more likely, if you don't know how to use AI to enhance your job, that could be a problem. And so they really are focused on using AI to make you even more effective and use your human skills more effectively by pushing off, you know, rogue routine things that drive you crazy with an AI tool. There's about 30 of our employees that have gone through the 30-day challenge. Myself being one of them. And I can tell you that it fundamentally changed the way I even thought about AI as a tool, and also how I've used it in my work. And so we are now offering AI agility training out into the community, and one of you could sign up to our continuing ed if you'd like, but also offering it to employees in our community so that we can help our region become a little bit more comfortable with what's to come. It's not going away. I can guarantee you that. And I was just at a conference and we were talking about, you know, and I remember, I'm sure some of you might remember, I remember sitting in the conference room when someone was trying to explain to me what the World Wide Web was, and I could not wrap my head around it. And of course now, you know, we would say, of course, we know what that is. This is another technology. Of course, it's very powerful. It can be used for bad, just like any other technology. We want to try to offer that opportunity to educate people on ways to use AI responsibly. So we'll be rolling that out the next cohort starting June 30th. And if you are interested, please let us know. We'll get you signed up. Also, for my Washington County friends, we're excited that we have signed an agreement with the Greenwich School District to provide continuing ed courses in Greenwich. And my 12th year here, and probably all 12 of those years, I would often hear, especially from was Washington County, the college bring more education to the county, especially in the areas that are, pretty far from campus. And so I'm thrilled that this is a good start. It gets us kind of in the door and being able to offer some things that primarily will be personal enrichment, but some professional development. But it gives us a chance to kind of see what the audience is looking for, and then we can respond accordingly. So happy to share that with you. As far as enrollment, our current enrollment cycle, which summer session is kind of the last part of our 24-25 goals, we think we're on track to meeting our budget goals, but excited about seeing an increase in our enrollment in the summer. Summer 1 is currently what we're in. We have a second summer session that starts in July. One thing that we did new this year, which we want to continue, is we actually went out and partnered with 5 different school districts to be able to say to the entire senior class, you are admitted to SUNY Adirondack. As long as you graduate and do what you're supposed to do, you have a place with us. And it may seem sort of like, why would you do that? Wouldn't students know that as an open admission community college, they're admitted? Some students don't. Sometimes just that extension of offer says to a student, oh, I didn't really think I could go to college, and now I see a path for myself. We've admitted 1,000 seniors through that initiative. We went out to each school, had a big celebration, and everyone got swag, all the important things. But more importantly, it was signaling to any student that graduates that you have a place at Adirondack. So we're anxious to see how that new program converts to students, but we'll continue that. And then I think today, actually, our team was at Hudson Falls. They asked us to come in and actually sit down and register students at the high school rather than require students to come to us. So just continuing to look at new ways to bring college to people, to reduce as many barriers as possible to enroll in college. Fall 25, our applications continue to remain a little bit ahead of last year. We have about an 8% increase in our new student registration. Of course, registration goes on all the way through the end of August, so there's still a lot of time left in our world. We've seen a really great increase in our adult learners, and I'm going to finish up with SUNY Reconnect, which you may have heard about. In the governor's budget, they passed what she called the Opportunity Promise, what now has been rebranded as SUNY Reconnect. It's free community college tuition, books, fees, and supplies for any adult learner aged 25 to 55 in high demand degree programs, and for anyone who's never earned a degree. Very exciting. I mean, I was saying to someone in my, many decades in higher education and certainly at community colleges, I think this is one of the best things the state could have done to try to really incentivize and try to meet the workforce needs of our communities. And so for community colleges, this is very exciting. Other states that have implemented similar programs have seen tremendous results. And although, yes, there are restrictions right now, I'm hopeful that should it really prove successful that they may limit or reduce the limitations, in other words, the age requirement or even the degree requirement. So we've already received over 400 inquiries from the time that this was announced, which was really only less than 4 weeks ago. Last night we had our first information session, and I think we had close to 60 people. Every session that we've offered so far is already booked. So the interest is high. Of course, there's devils in the details in terms of how this all plays out, but most importantly, it signals to an adult who's thinking about going to college or may have been to college but didn't complete. We heard a few of those stories last night from people who came to the information session, like, I had 15 more credits, but life happened. Now this gives people an opportunity to come back and not have that financial barrier. So we're very, very excited about how this is going to play out. And although it isn't only about 5 of our degree programs, it is a good start in being able to help boost enrollment, of course, but more importantly, to help our workforce needs. Of course, just to look ahead, and my successor, Anastasia Urick, will be starting on July 1st. In fact, she'll be here this afternoon. We're continuing to do some handoffs and some knowledge transfer, so she'll hit the ground running, and I'm sure she'll look forward to working with all of you. So I hope you will extend as much of a welcome as you did for me 12 years ago and have continued over there. last several years. And then finally, I have presented this a little bit to some of you, but just looking ahead, are probably the next big capital project the college will be looking to complete is what we're calling our Future Work Center. I brought some handouts for those of you who haven't had that yet. But really the concept is to focus on primarily our advanced manufacturing mechatronics degree program, as well as our cybersecurity networking, as well as address the multi-million dollars of deferred maintenance and obviously upgrading our facilities to match the high quality instruction that our faculty provide. The first phase we envision to be renovating what's now the humanities building, technically the theater, take that high ceiling space and create it into a modern manufacturing floor so that students are learning in the same type of environment they are potentially going to be working in. We kind of liken it to what we did with Adirondack Hall when we renovated all of our science and our nursing classrooms and simulation labs. So now students really they're in a sim lab here on campus that's going to look very similar to what they're experiencing in the hospital. Season was another way we did that. We created a lab that's as probably nicer restaurant sometimes than maybe where they'll end up working, but again, that concept that students are learning in a space that's going to look like where they're going to be working. So we need to do that here. In the mechatronics program right now, we took some really what I would call chalk and talk classrooms and retrofitted and crammed, with machines in there to help students learn. And they're certainly learning, but it would be even that much better if they could learn in a space that really is matching what's modern. And being able to have the flexibility to move things around and accommodate the changing world of manufacturing. And then the second thing is our cybersecurity networking classrooms. We're already out of space and we need to address those. So this is a long-term project. Ironically, the total cost was $33 million, which is almost to the dollar that we spent on Adirondack Hall and Northwest Bay. Coincidence. And then we'll split that up into two phases. So the first phase would be Andy's building would be roughly 13 million. And then the remainder would be our Dearlove Hall. We need to renovate that space. As you know, the way we fund capital at the state level is a 50-50 match. So when you say $33 million, you're really talking 16.5. It's not a small amount, but based on what the workforce is needing, it's still a small investment to be able to scale up with the college that we do. And we wanted to seize the moment in that all the discussion, we'll see how this plays out these days, but the CHIPS and Science Act and the expansion that GlobalFoundries is expecting to do in the next 8 to 10 years, we want to be ready and available if there are funding sources that can flow to us in order to help meet those demands. We want to be able to take advantage of that. So we spent time this past 2 years really working with JMC to develop our kind of a sketch and design of what this would look like, get some cost estimates so that we're at the ready should a grant program or some opportunity come our way, or our corporate donors to consider how they can invest in the college. So more to come on that. I'm not asking you for anything today, but just wanted to put that on your radar and probably where the college is going to head next in terms of addressing their our facilities and how to help the students be prepared. So with that, I'm going to stop, and if there are any questions or comments or thoughts, share. All right, otherwise we'll dive right into the budget. So Keith, you're up.
Sounds good. Much, Dr. Duffy. And I think it's incredibly fitting that the end of Dr. Duffy's presentation is a look ahead, because that's what a budget is. It's a look ahead. We're looking ahead to the 25-26 year. One of the things I've had to adjust to in becoming a community college financial person is the fact that the fiscal year is September 1st to August 31st. Incredibly not intuitive to me. The rest of the college and university world is June 30th fiscal year, so I've had to adjust to that. But it is it's just one of the many things that you have to adjust to. I really want to start things off by focusing on a couple of our recent alumni. We have Antonio Murphy from Warren County, from our culinary program, who is now a manager at a restaurant in Queensbury. And we have Grace McFerrin, who was a 2025 graduate, outdoor education from Washington County. And she was in our graduation program as well. And so we have to focus on that because we want to make sure that our budget positions ourselves so that we are a sustainable institution and we're going to be here for the Antonio Murphys and Grace McFerrins of next year and the year after the years after that. And in doing that, we have an ethos, and this is serious stuff. It sounds like, highfalutin wording in terms of careful stewardship of resources and innovatively managing our expenses. But it's all about being here in future years. We have to balance our budget, much like the counties do, much like any business does. Some of the SUNY four-year schools, I served at one of them, have debts that they owe to system administration and they're allowed to carry them from year to year. It doesn't work that way in community college space. Another thing I've had to adjust to. And so we have to balance our budget every year. By doing that, by having that requirement, we have to construct, it's incumbent on us to construct very conservative budget. And this budget, I think is. Everybody's got a copy of the budget book. It goes into more detail. Then I'm just going to keep kind of high level here and welcome your questions. Let's talk a little bit about how we get the money to the financial operations. Really 5 major sources here, and the first and largest is through our student tuition. And then the next 2 are the county. We have the sponsor support, and that's Warren and Washington County as our sponsor. So that's a chunk. But you heard Dr. Duffy before refer to chargebacks. That is an even larger source. And together, the sponsor support and the chargebacks that we charge from the counties that our non-Warren Washington students come from, together we consider that feasibility support. We also have state aid. That's very important. State aid, unfortunately, has been relatively flat. It has been flat over the last several years. We haven't seen an increase in 6 years. It's still important. However, it's something we have to reckon with when we're trying to construct a sustainable budget. Finally, we have other revenues, we have interest, we have other sources like that, but those are relatively small. And so among the main drivers, you can see here, I think it helps to kind of show pictorially, and if anybody's close one, let me know. I'll just describe it. But the blue bars at the top here are the local share that I was just referring to. So out of this 34.5% up here, 14.0 is the 2 counties, the sponsor support. That's up from 13.5%, and that reflects the fact that the counties have very generously agreed to the 5-year plan of sustained, continued, and incremental support of the college. We are very grateful to that, for that. Not only does that help us stay sustainable, and it prevents us from having to dip into our fund balance even more than we would have to, but also it enables us to charge more in chargebacks to those other counties. So it's really helping us in 2 ways. So that chunk is the blue. The next you'll see is that grayish white bar. That's a state support. Like I said before, that has been flat over the last several years, and since our expenses don't stay flat, we have increased fringe benefits, health insurance is the biggest driver of that, but we also have pension benefits that have increased over last year, utilities, other sources like that. So in an environment where expenses will go up and your income is staying the same, obviously the share of that the state support is going down. So several years ago it's close to 30%, and now it's less than 25%. So if that ever does increase some more, we can get ourselves into a greater sense of equilibrium. We really The goal is really have a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 share between local, state, and students. And finally, the green is the students, 41.5%. Obviously, we would prefer it if the students had less of a burden among those chunks. So that was something I just wanted to make sure everybody had a good understanding of in terms of our revenue picture. Our expenses, the way we view our expenses is you have the expenses that are kind of ongoing and operating. You have salaries, fringe, you have subscriptions, you have things, licenses, things that you need to do to continue. Then you have things that are, we have strategic investments, we have an innovation fund as well as small. We might have, more targeted investments, you might have capital investments. But you also have equipment purchases, and those you have a little bit more of a discretion as to your spending. And in an environment where enrollment has been challenged over the last several years, we want to be really conservative. So this year's budget reflects us being conservative about our revenue expectations, and as a result, our expense outlook has been wherever possible, where we've had the discretion to try to keep those expenses in check. So I'll give you some examples. We had a couple of key retirements of senior faculty members. They're not going to spots. Realizing the savings from that. We had a chief diversity officer position. We're not budgeting that for next year, and instead fulfilling his responsibility for the existing employees. We had a vice president leave a couple of months ago, vice president of enrollment and student affairs. That position, we want to leave it up to the incoming president as to whether or not to fill that spot. So what we budgeted for is 6 months of that person to go out for a search for our president wants to do that. So those are some personnel related examples. But also among like the equipment and utilities, getting much better. But in terms of equipment, we have deferred the purchase of new computers. We're going to really focus and target. We have to replace some. We have a lot of computers that are becoming obsolete. So the ones that are more vital to instruction, those will be the ones we do purchase. If our financial outlook is better, if we find that more revenues coming in, we'll have to wherewithal to get them. But that's kind of where we're planning it. We're trying to be really conservative. So even with that, we're still going to have to dip into our fund balance by $397,000, just with the factors that I've outlined. We have a fund balance policy that we enacted this fiscal year that calls for between 8 and 16% coverage, fund balance versus operating expenses. So even with dipping into it by $397,000, we'll still have 9.6% coverage. So we'll still be adequate. We'll still be able to comply, but obviously, this as a DBA, I don't. I'm not big on that. It's not something I really like to see, but it is a necessity for this outlook. Now, if we do wind up with an enrollment surge from factors such as SUNY Reconnect, we could find ourselves in much better financial straits, and then we can use our fund balance less, or even better, not use any at all. That would be great. But we want to be prepared for a worst case scenario and hope for a better.
What are you expecting for the change in chargebacks from the?
Change chargebacks throughout the year. We have it on the revenues.
No, what's it gonna make them go down if you use fund balance?
I'm sorry.
The rate.
What's it gonna, yeah,
The
they
rate.
will get decreased. The
No, the other
chargebacks if we use fund balance.
Eric, do you-
It's the, if we use fund balance, that counts as sponsor support, we have to increase it. Like you guys gave us more money.
It will increase it. So
We're gonna charge back rate will be last
so
year,
we're
the current year's 50.
rebuild fund balance and we took the dip.
As a direct correlation.
Yeah, I know it's correlated.
Yes, or will, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's a really tough calculation here.
Because when you get too low and you rebuild it back, that's when it takes it down, right? That's cut it backwards.
Still ideal not to use it, but yeah. So anyway, just to kind of summarize everything. So overall, take all the expenses put together, we're calling for a 2.8% increase in total operating expenses. And what that it really translates to is our salaries are going up by less than 2%. And that's really, if you think about normal cost of living increases that we agree to with our bargaining units, et cetera, offset by positions that we're not filling, right? That kind of offsets, and so it's a pretty modest increase in the salaries. Our fringe benefits are going up by 12%, and that's largely driven by health insurance, but also contributed to by our pension. And all other expenses are slightly decreased. And so that ends up with a totality of 2.8% increase in operating expenses. Personnel, so salaries and fringe together, a little over 3/4 of our total labor. I mean, that's what we're selling here. We're selling the services and the expertise of our people, and that's fairly typical for colleges and universities. One college that I worked at earlier 5 years ago, pretty hot to fires. So I wasn't shocked to see it. That actually was a little bit lower than that.
So the way you worded that, your 0.1 line is gonna increase by 2%. So what's your actual increase to your employees? It must be higher, because you're gonna have less of them.
It's about 4%.
I was trying to clarify.
Yeah, for the existing. And as I mentioned before, students are about 41.5%. In terms of their share of things, and again, as I mentioned before, the county sponsoring county, 21 county share has gone up from 13.5 to 14. So we're very grateful for that. Our total budget comes out at 33.3 million, and we respectfully ask for your approval of that budget. We also have grants expected for next year. We keep that separate from the other operating expenses and the way that we report it, but it's all at the end of the day part of the spending. So everything's summarized there in your booklets. And I really just want to open this up to your questions. We have opened the community college and the finance committee.
Well, that was the finance committee with you slowly. By Driscoll, and seconded by Supervisor Lucido. Any questions or discussion? Looks like a pretty good budget. I'll call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second as well. Aye. I'll make a motion to call finance to order. Who wants to make that? Okay, say aye. Aye. Okay, we have a motion to accept the. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Great. Are there any other questions or thoughts you want to share? Otherwise, we really appreciate your time, and we know that you will be opening this up for public comment at your meeting, and then for supervisor vote in July, which we can.
I have a question, not about the budget, but about the trends of enrollment. How do we compare to the private colleges in the nearby areas on when students opportunities to get more?
Private colleges in particular, depending on how much their reach is throughout the country, if they depend on regional demographics, they're subject to the same things that we're seeing, there's just less people. We've seen that trend continue to go down. That's why focusing on adult learners is really important to us. It doesn't mean we don't focus on our high school graduates, of course, but that population is either shrinking or at least stagnant. The population of people that have some college and no degree is substantially bigger than high school graduates. So, part of that strategy is being able to look at the adult learner market. Some private colleges do that better than others. It just depends on, who they are and what kind of programs they offer. That kind of way.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. And then as far as transfer, we have lots of articulation agreements with colleges to be able to show that path for a student that's looking for, the starting point here and then moving on to a four-year college and great relationships. Of course, we have Plattsburgh right here on site, and offering, I think, 5 to 6 or up to new programs right here in Kingsbury. So that also helps to create a pathway for students.
I want to thank you in, as far as having, active workforce development and by giving them the education that provides them the way to a job in the area, keeps these people home. Absolutely. And over the years, you've been able to someone from hospital and you ask about where did you get your education? And so all those improvements only improve our training.
Continuing that focus.
Just a comment, I got to see a lot of changes. I was here when Mr. Heacock was here. And I know it's been a long farewell tour, but I want to thank you immensely for what you've done for the college and kind of got the counties to coalesce around the different things that were needed and necessary here to make it so we work with our local businesses and provide jobs. I think that we're headed in the right direction. It's just according to how the area grows in the future as to where the college will go. So, really appreciate that for your service.
Yeah, I would like to echo Mr. Campbell's comments that really move the college forward. Here.
Have a great team to work with. And you all have been incredible partners. I think of Bob a couple of years ago, remember we stood here and we made some decisions about the county's increase in their sponsor. I'm pretty sure I had tears in my eyes and wow, we've really come a long way as a team. I mean, we're all part of this together. Because when the college does well, the community does well. And so really appreciate everyone's support in helping us move forward and that will continue to grow. Before I fall apart, let's just go ahead and adjourn and thank you very much. And if you would like to take our proposal for future works, please do want to come here with the whole time. So happy to.
Right, it's adjourned.
Right, you're going to adjourn. Okay.
All right.
Thanks for coming. See?